So I'm going to start this match review with a little bit of a rant, if I'm honest, and that is because before I came on to film this, I had a quick check of social media to see what the reaction was like to Liverpool's 2-2 draw away at Arsenal, and I was overwhelmed and surprised really by the negativity that I saw from some Liverpool supporters who didn't seem to believe that this was a good result to claim a 2-2 draw away at Arsenal. I think too easy or too quickly people forget that over the last 2 seasons, Liverpool have been beaten in each of the last 2 Premier League visits to Arsenal. They've also finished a long way behind them in the Premier League table. So to go there and claim a draw, I think is a very, very good result. And I wonder whether some of the negativity comes from, too many people maybe buying into the pre-match narrative, which was that Arsenal had too many injuries to possibly cope with, and there was no chance they could come up against an Liverpool side like this and go toe-to-toe with them, despite the fact they were home. And I can't believe so many people have bought into that. I mean, for starters, look at the Arsenal starting 11. We were told that Bukayo Saka and Jurriën Timber had absolutely no chance of being involved in this game. They hadn't trained all week and they were nowhere near it, according to Mikel Arteta. And yet a miraculous recovery occurs whereby both of them end up starting in this game. And then you look beyond that in terms of who Arsenal were missing. And obviously, there was quite a few defenders in there, but you can't start them all. So I would argue that 3 players that they were missing as starters were Martin Odegaard, William Saliba, and I think Calafiori would probably have started at left back in this one. So yes, 3 players who were a blow to them in terms of missing them, but then you look at what Liverpool are missing. Diogo Jota and Alisson Becker would 100% have started this game if they were fit for Liverpool. They are key players. And then beyond that, missing Harvey Elliott, who always seems to be first sub for Liverpool, and I've no doubt he would have played that role here. Chiesa would have added a bit of quality off the bench and a bit of pace when you're looking to win it on the break. And then obviously, I'm not even mentioning that Conor Bradley, for example, is missing, because I don't know whether he would have been involved. But definitely 2 nailed-on starters for Liverpool missing, and yet Arsenal only have 3 starters missing. And it's like, how could we possibly cope with facing Liverpool at home? It absolutely amazes me really that this narrative has kind of been bought into. And I mean, I know that Arsenal, I must acknowledge that they lose a couple of defenders towards the end of the game, but it's not like they had to play the entirety of the game with those injuries or those problems. So again, I'm just not sure where that negativity comes from, and particularly because Liverpool, like I say, it's a tough place to go. You have to come from behind twice and claim a point. And I also think, to do that shows great mental strength and quality. So again, that, should be more positivity around what Liverpool have done. And I think in terms of the title race, if there's some disappointment because Liverpool are now 1 point behind Manchester City, it's very early days to be worried about that. And also, it keeps them 4 ahead of Arsenal, having played Arsenal away from home. That, by any measure, really up against the title contender is a really, really good result. So I'm absolutely, hugely surprised really with some of the negativity I saw on social media. Maybe you guys disagree. Do let me know in the comments how you felt about this result. But anyway, that's rant over. Now we'll get into my analysis of the game and what I thought we saw. And I think one element I want to talk about a lot really here, and I think it was the key element of the game really, was the tactical battle, which I thought was kind of ended on as even, but it was a really, really interesting one. And I've praised Arne Slot an awful lot on this channel so far. I mean, my last video was saying he's made a historical start to his Liverpool career, winning 11 out of 12. Unbelievable, and deserves to be put in its context. But I think a small, crumb of disappointment around his performance in this game, in that I thought Liverpool got, tactically beaten up a little bit in the first half here. And the problem was that we just overloads in midfield again. Now, we saw that against Chelsea, actually, didn't we, in the last game, the last Premier League game, where they were creating numbers in midfield with Gusto inverting from left back. And it was a problem that Liverpool couldn't really deal with for a lot of the game. But because they probably got a higher quality level than Chelsea, and because it was at Anfield as well, and you're up against a side that's maybe top 4 rather than a title contender, Liverpool kind of got through and won the game anyway. But I think, you can't allow Arsenal to do that to you on their own patch, to have that numerical advantage in central areas, which they did for so long in this game. And I think what they were doing and the way they were creating that was basically Havertz dropping in, but not just dropping into a central area where he would be quite easy to track or the players could keep an eye on him. He'd try and drag himself out into wide positions as well to create overload. So a really good example of this happened in the first half, where Havertz basically goes out to the right-hand side, stands right next to Saka, and because that would leave Robertson in a 2v1, McAllister gets a little bit worried. His position drags over. He's trying to, create cover on that side. But then, of course, McAllister's in the midfield too with Gravenberch. And what it does is creates an enormous gap between the two of them, because McAllister is trying to cover that off. and all it took was basically a couple of simple passes for Arsenal to find the free man, which would inevitably be Trossard or maybe Merino. And then they were in huge gaps in the centre of midfield, get it out to the other side, fullback under no pressure, and then you've got a 1v1 on that side instead. So, Liverpool really, I thought it was obvious from very, very early in the game, and I don't think Slot did enough to deal with it. And as I say, felt like he got away with that a little bit against Chelsea, that he only needed to make that tweak at half-time. But he waited too long for me. I mean, Liverpool got themselves back into the game at 1-1, but this problem kept happening. And again, then they get to 2-1. And from that position, if Arsenal had seen this out better, or, if they played better in the second half, or, Liverpool weren't quite able to find the breakthrough, that first half would have been decisive. You can't give yourself a 1-goal deficit and 45 minutes to sort things out. Would have liked to have seen Slot be a bit quicker off the mark. But as much as I say that, I also want to praise how he did react to things in the second half and how he did deal with it. And that was through Trent inverting effectively and becoming that extra midfielder. So all of a sudden Arsenal didn't really have that extra man in midfield, and Liverpool, he was doing it on and off the ball. He's coming into central areas. So what it was doing, it was helping Liverpool in build-up by having that extra man in central midfield. And then off the ball again, he was tucked in quite a lot, and that was helping them to kind of cover off that overload that we were trying to create with Havertz. So I thought it was a really, really smart tactical change. I would have just liked to have seen it a little earlier, and I know it's difficult when you can't get all the players together to talk through it and you can't show them the clips. But as I say, it was the big reason why Arsenal kind of won that first half, really, and why Liverpool struggled. And I think the stats really kind of illustrate this, really, in terms of how well that tactical switch worked. I mean, the first half, 6-3 to Arsenal on shots, 0.8 to 0.36 on expected goals, and Arsenal with 53% of the possession. And yet in the second half, Arsenal 3 shots, Liverpool 6. Expected goals 0.23 for Arsenal, 0.49 for Liverpool, and Arsenal with 37% of the possession in the second half. So it absolutely worked. A great change by Slot, but as I say, just would have loved to see it a little bit earlier in the game. And I also must praise him, I think, for his substitutions. I thought every one of them worked. I thought Tsimikas was much better than Robertson down that side on both sides of the ball. Szoboszlai added real legs in midfield and purpose from there. And I thought he was fantastic in a midfield that was working much better by the time he came on. And Gakpo again, I thought was really good and gave Partey more problems, which I thought Diaz could have maybe done more in terms of that, but Gakpo looked really, really dangerous when he came on. So I thought those changes were really good, but I think it was a system change in the way that Liverpool solved that tactical problem that had a bigger influence for me, but the two together made Liverpool overall much better in the second half, and so praise to Slot for that one. Now I'll go into a few individual performances I want to talk about, and I will start on a little bit of a negative here, because I think there was one, and I probably think it's fair to point that out, and that was Andy Robertson on that left hand side. I mean, he's been so good for Liverpool down the years, but I think he's starting to worry a little bit about his performances and whether kind of he's just passing that peak now, isn't he? And is he going to become a little bit of a problem for Liverpool? I mean, he completes only 73% of his passes, so was a bit of a problem in build-up for Liverpool, and didn't do too well with the ball. And again, 0 out of 3 crosses completed as well kind of underlines that, but also dribbled past twice. And I thought in defensive work he did, maybe getting isolated too often in 1v1s, and that's not really fair to judge someone on that. But he used to be so good in those situations, and I think it's kind of it's tough balance to strike really between saying you've got to win your individual battles, but also how many players do win those individual battles against Saka. But I would like to think, and I think I'm right in saying this, that the Robertson of 2019-20 probably does win that individual battle and comes out on top of that, even if he's a little bit exposed at times. So it's an interesting one for me. I just thought he had a poor game, and I thought it was a good sub to bring Tsimikas on for him. And left back's been one of the areas you kind of talk about and think about that Liverpool could maybe do with strengthening in the next couple of windows. And will that speed things up? Will they be looking to January to do some business there? We'll have to see. But it did look a bit of a problem today, and that first goal just comes from a simple moment of a ball over the top. Robertson's second to it, and then he gets the ball put through his legs, and the ball's in the back of the net. And yeah, Liverpool can't afford for him to put in too many more performances like that, because it wasn't a good one, and it gives a goal up and gives Liverpool a bit of a mountain to climb. But I don't want to focus too much on negatives from what I say is a really good result, and I also want to talk about some huge positives. I thought Both centre-halves, again, fantastic. Konate, 3 out of 3 duels won, 2 out of 2 tackles won, 6 recoveries, and I thought he absolutely bullied Martinelli. I mean, one of the things about the fact that Trent is getting pushed into that central position a lot is that, particularly in the second half, Arsenal were able to isolate Konate in 1v1s against Martinelli, but the way he dealt with it, and the way he dealt with every time the ball coming over the top, that physical battle with Martinelli was just very one-sided, and I thought he absolutely bullied him, and I thought he was great in everything that he did. And Virgil van Dijk similarly gets the goal, of course, really well worked, by the way, great set piece, love that. And you know, talked about set piece coach on here, and the work that Aaron Briggs is doing in terms of that. Another one to chalk up to that, really, really well worked. Another good set-piece goal. And Van Dijk also, beyond that, sort of 7 out of 11 duels won, 5 headed clearances, and I thought he was pretty monstrous today. You know, he will be disappointed around the organisation, around Arsenal's second goal in particular. I felt that, you know, maybe with that one, he's the one that's playing them on side with that stride. Sometimes those are just luck, but I'm sure he'll be a bit harsh on himself around that one. But I thought otherwise he was fantastic. And one more player I want to highlight as well is Darwin Nunez. I mean, again, I've been critical of him on this channel in the past and things I've written. But if he keeps this up, he's gonna make me look like a fool, because I think these last 3 games he's been massively improved. And I thought he was very, very good today. Just kind of quietly going around his business, but doing well. I mean, obviously the standout moment is the assist for Mo Salah. Great run in behind, great weight on the ball, easy finish for Salah from that point, because he just puts it on a plate for him. But I thought everything else he was doing kind of well. I mean, again, one of the things I focused on in one of his poor recent games against Bologna was pass completion, and he's 75% again here today, which is right up there. That's exactly where you need him. You know, he's not going to be a shot machine, I don't think, in this system, but I think what he needs to be is someone who takes care of possession and gets Liverpool up the pitch. And he didn't have a lot to work with in the first half, but I thought he did everything. Every time he got it, he seemed to do something nicely with it and get Liverpool up the pitch. And then second half, he kind of came into his own as well. So I think that 75% passing accuracy, love to see that from him, and that he's contributing in build-up. And 5 out of 15 duels won sounds quite unimpressive in terms of only winning a third of your duels, but he ended up in so many duels that weren't in his favour, you know, 1v1s against massive centre-halves, but he just kept trying to get Liverpool up the pitch. And I really like that about his game, his real determination there, and I thought he was a massive factor for Liverpool in that aspect. And 5 defensive actions as well, completes 2 out of 2 dribbles, so both sides of his game there looking really, really good. And as I say, criticised him in the past, but will always highlight when I think he played well, and I thought he was really, really good for Liverpool today, and obviously sets up the goal that gets him the point, so huge praise to him. And if you can keep showing this improvement, then you know what will happen with him going forward, I don't think is quite as clear cut as it maybe looked a few games ago. So great to see him coming into some form, and long may it continue. So going to leave my review there as ever, and I think one of the things I want to focus on is that, you know, the Premier League table's looking good. Liverpool haven't been beaten by Arsenal at the Emirates, which bodes well when you consider the last 2 seasons. There's a 4-point gap to them. As I say, only the 1 point behind Manchester City. Liverpool looking pretty good in these early stages under Arne Slot. Look like they're banging a title race, which is not what I personally expected with a new manager coming in and so much change behind the scenes. But they made a fantastic start, and they're looking really, really good to keep that continuing, and a really good result, I thought, today. But as ever, do let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Am I being too high on this result? There are elements of negativity I should have focused on more, or do you think I'm being fair? Obviously, I think I'm being fair. I think it's a really good result, and I think it keeps Liverpool on that unbeaten streak and looking really, really good in terms of the title race. But do let me know what you think. And as ever, if you enjoyed this video, do please give me a like. Always helpful that it, you know, gets it out there, ensures more people see it. And if you've just stumbled across the channel, firstly, where have you been? We've got 20,000 subscribers now, so thank you everyone. But if you're new to the channel, do hit subscribe as well and join in. We get match reviews, press conferences, analysis of transfers, and everything else in between. So please do jump on board. It looks like it's going to be a very, very fun season, doesn't it, under Arne Slot, after a good result today and some good results before that. So really good time to get on board. So I'm going to leave it there. As ever, I'll say I'll see you guys very soon.